Alright, so for this sprint I was able to get all 3 new enemies in here. So by pressing 2, the fleas come in from the top, randomly drop their mushrooms. Pressing 1, scorpions come in from either side and can poison those mushrooms. We can also shoot them down. And by pressing 3, spiders come in from the sides and zigzag around, kill those mushrooms. We come in contact with any of these enemies, we will die. So our mushroom field is very similar to what we had before. We have a grid system. We just go through each row column, randomly decide if we'll plant a mushroom, and then whenever a mushroom is destroyed, it has a link back to the field class so that it will set that position to null. And we also keep track of how many mushrooms we have in general. We have an enemy manager class managing all 3 new enemies. So for our scorpion, we have a range of rows it can spawn in that we pass through, in addition to a direction of an enum value. The scorpion updates its starting position based on our direction, as well as changing the scale to flip the sprite if it's going left. And then with the mushroom, if it comes in contact with the scorpion, if it's not already poisoned, we'll set that to true and also update its current frame by a few more, so it will look poisoned, but it will still keep the same health. With the flea, we also send in a range of columns it can spawn in, and we also keep track of its row and column position, so it kind of knows where it is in order to plant mushrooms. Its speed is determined by the row height, so it'll always move a certain number of frames to get to the next row. So that's what we keep track of in our update frame. Once the counter gets to this certain value, we know we've reached a new row. And if the flea is inside the mushroom field and the row column position doesn't contain a mushroom there, we'll randomly decide if we'll plant a mushroom. And once it comes in contact with a bullet, if its health gets to 1, it can no longer plant mushrooms and we increase its speed. Then the spider, we determine its boundaries here. Update its position based on the direction, and then basically every frame we keep track of whether it reaches the bottom or top boundary, and once it does, we're randomly going to decide if it's either going to just travel up and down, straight up and down, or kind of move in a diagonal path still towards the other side of the screen. And then one other thing I was also able to incorporate, all objects in the game, their scales and their speeds are all set relative to the window size or the grid size. So basically, if we go in here and change the resolution to something a little smaller than before, as long as we still keep the same aspect ratio, the game will just appear a little smaller, but all the objects scale correctly. They move at the same speed, and the game just plays the exact same way as it did before.